ever look at a massive skyscraper or drive on a brand new highway and just wonder, how did this even happen? Every one of those incredible achievements has a story. It starts with a little spark of an idea, and it ends with something real and tangible. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the structured journey that makes it all possible.
So yeah, how do you take something incredibly complex, like building a new hospital from the ground up, or rolling out a new IT system for a whole city, and actually get it done without everything just descending into total chaos? Well, the answer is a lot simpler and honestly more elegant than you might think.
Every single one starts with a blueprint. And in the world of project management, that blueprint has a name: the project management cycle. It's the framework, the game plan, that brings order to the chaos and gives us a clear path from A to Z. So let's unroll this blueprint and take a closer look. Okay, first things first. Before a single piece of rebar is laid or a single line of code is written, we have to lay the foundation. This is all about asking the big questions, the why and the how. This is the critical thinking stage, and it happens before anything else. The whole journey is broken down into 5 distinct phases. We kick things off with initiation, then dive deep into planning. After that comes the real action, execution. And running right alongside it, you've got monitoring and controlling. And finally, we wrap it all up with closing. Think of this as our roadmap for the rest of this explainer.
So, let's start at the beginning. Initiation. This is all about answering that fundamental question: why are we doing this? The main thing that comes out of this phase is something called the project charter. And honestly, the best way to think of it is as the project's official birth certificate. It's the document that says, yes, this project is real and we're officially giving it the green light. Once we know why we're doing it, we move on to the how. That's the planning phase. This is where we flesh out that blueprint in painstaking detail. We're talking about the project management plan. Going back to our hospital example, this plan would have everything: the architectural designs, the exact budget, the construction schedule, who's supplying the materials, potential risks. Every single thing is mapped out here.
And all that detail is absolutely crucial. Why? Because of this simple truth. A week of planning saves a month of rework. Seriously, getting this phase right is probably the single best predictor of whether a project will ultimately succeed or fail. It's that important. All right, our blueprint is officially complete. Now we get to move from plan to progress. This is where things get really exciting, where the project starts to come to life. Let's talk about the action phases, the build and the steer. The execution phase is, well, it's exactly what it sounds like. This is where the rubber meets the road. The cranes start moving, the teams are hustling, and that vision you had on paper starts to become a real physical thing. The project manager here is like an orchestra conductor, making sure all the different sections are playing in harmony and following the sheet music we wrote in the planning phase. But here's the key. Execution doesn't just happen in a bubble. It runs side by side with the monitoring and controlling phase. And this slide really boils it down perfectly. You are constantly comparing your blueprint, that's where you expect it to be, with the actual build, that's where you are right now. A great way to think about it is like you're steering a massive ship. You don't just point it in the right direction and hope you get there, right? No way. A good captain is always making tiny, constant corrections to the wheel to stay on course. That is exactly what project monitoring is. If a supplier delay puts you 2 weeks behind schedule, you don't just accept it. You figure out how to make up that time somewhere else. It's all about making proactive corrections. So, we've built a thing, we've steered it through some choppy waters, and now it is time to bring the ship safely into port. The final phase is just as critical as the first one, because a project isn't really done until you've finished strong. The closing phase isn't just a party at the finish line. It's a formal process. This is where you officially hand over the keys, so to speak. You close out all the contracts, get the final sign-offs, but arguably the most valuable thing you do here is document the lessons learned. What went great? What was a complete disaster? Capturing that knowledge is what makes the whole organization smarter for the next project. Now, you can have the most perfect process in the world, but it can still fall flat if the environment isn't right. So let's talk about the essential supports that hold up the entire project management cycle. We call these the pillars of success. Because even with that perfect 5-step cycle, a project can fail if its foundation is shaky. It turns out that successful projects are almost always held up by 4 foundational pillars. So what are they? Here they are. First, you need organizational support. That means leadership has your back.
Second, cross-functional teams, getting all the different experts you need in the same room working together. Third, strategic alignment. This makes sure the project actually matters to the company's bigger goals. And finally, the glue that holds it all together, effective communication. Just like the pillars of a bridge, if any one of these is weak, the entire structure is at risk of collapse. And that, right there, is the power of this entire framework. When you combine that disciplined 5-phase cycle with these 4 strong pillars of support, you create a reliable, repeatable process. It's a system that can consistently take an idea from just a simple concept all the way to a concrete reality. So whether your next project is a new mobile app, a community fundraiser, or renovating your kitchen, this structure gives you a path forward. The only question left is, what blueprint will you create next?